Good evening. I'm Rosemary Hardonfortrudeau with CBC's We Have Issues, and to talk about politics today is Chantal BerT, Andrew Loonie, and Althia Blahblahblah. And the topic we're going to talk about today is the same topic we talk about every day. How bad is Pierre Pollievre doing? Andrew, I'll start with you.
Well, of course, my unbiased opinion as a member of the press is, given the week we've seen of Pierre, he's been making every single possible mistake conceivable. His entire campaign is in complete shambles. He looks like he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about anymore. He keeps trying to make this election about pedantic, pedestrian, and worst of all, populist issues that nobody cares about anymore. Silly issues like jobs, the economy, housing, cost of living, crime, immigration, government spending, government debt, government corruption, taxes. Superficial things that really appeal to his maple mega base of antisocial yobs. And that's just not what matters to Canadians right now. What matters to Canadians right now is the thing I talk to my therapist at length about every morning while clutching my blankie. It's Donald Trump. And on that issue, he's flopping worse than my book is going to, available in stores in May. And that's because we in the media have completely checkmated him. He can't suggest we negotiate a trade deal because the instant he even entertains the idea of actually negotiating with our biggest trading partner, led by that madman Donald Trump, aka Orange Hitler, will prove once and for all he really is the Canadian Trump we've been trying to make stick for 3 years.
Althea, your thoughts?
I agree.
Thanks, Althea.
Look, the fact is, Trump doesn't understand tariffs. There are attacks on his own people. Totally stupid, which is why it was genius for us to tariff ourselves back. Because if there's one thing Canadians want right now, it's a trade war, on top of the cost of living crisis during this, I don't want to say recession, more like a vibe session we're in right now. Canadians are once again ready to take one for the team, pay even higher prices and taxes, suffer even greater inflation, destroy their lives for another 3 years after that common cold that was going around. Canadians are happy to completely destroy the Canadian economy if it means slightly inconveniencing Trump.
Well, and what else could the Liberals have done? We assume they did everything they possibly could have to avoid tariffs. And if we assume that, then the tariffs were unavoidable. And if we assume that, then that completely absolves the Liberals of all responsibility for negotiating poorly, maybe even being the very cause of the tariffs. And as always, that is the case. Everything going wrong right now is not the Liberals' fault. It's not the Liberals' fault that there was a plague and a world war and a recession and unstable geopolitics and, of course, a climate emergency and a Cheeto running our biggest trading partner. Nope. Everything going wrong right now is everybody else's fault. But Pierre would have you believe the incumbent government is to blame for the state of the country. Well, you know what? Trudeau did his best with the mess of the country Harper gave him. So really, it's Harper's fault. He had 9 years.
And speaking of, well, look, it'd be anything short of a disservice to call him anything but the Messiah. After the Messiah took over after the tragic loss of our liberal Jesus, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, Justin Trudeau, had a conversation with Trump. And then Trump tweeted afterwards saying they agree on a lot of issues.
Exactly. That's leadership. To call the president of the neighboring country and negotiate a trade deal. Not like being a combative conservative and insulting Trump and inciting a trade war.
Look, Pierre wants to keep harping on dead issues. Take the carbon tax. How many times do we need to explain this? 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back than they pay in. It's the first tax in history that creates more value than it takes in. And it's the first tax in history that has the power to change the weather. And, on top of all of that, despite the carbon tax being heavier on business, it somehow also doesn't increase prices. Some people say that all of that together is a contradiction and a paradox. But the very fact that it's able to accomplish all of those things simultaneously just speaks to the sheer brilliance of the rest of us can't understand the mechanism for how it works. And of course the brilliance of our religious figure who brought it in. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, our Savior, Justin Trudeau. And the fact that the Conservatives want to harp on this issue of unintended consequences, that a tax of any kind, even a tax as small as 30% on energy, affects the economy or prices in any way, just fills me with laughter.
It just speaks to Carney's aptitude and PhD for economics and finance, as he realized the carbon tax was actually costing Canadians more money than originally speculated. Which is why it was nice to see the adult in the room within a week of his prime ministership use his PhD to analyze the carbon tax's unintended effects, and so found a way to sort of cut down, or rather hatchet away the tax. And now, 10 out of 10 Canadians will be better off. And all credit goes to Mark Carney. I'm sure the other parties are kicking themselves for not having come up with that themselves. Now, speaking of oil and gas, let's jump to Danielle Smith, aka Canadian Eva Braun, because her hollow policies are going to cost Canadians. And to discuss Alberta is our resident expert on Alberta, Chantal BerT. Now tell us, how long have you been an expert of Alberta for?
About 20 years and counting. Bonjour. Look, this week Danielle declared her 9 little demands for Ottawa to meet within 6 months or she will threaten them with secession. And I can't tell you how angry this makes me. You do not just get to demand whatever you want of the federal government. You are not Quebec. And what Quebec needs, and by extension what Canada needs, is unity. We are one country, and we must each do our part to help Quebec, and by extension Canada. And what Danielle Smith, and by extension Alberta, doesn't understand is we in Quebec deserve those transfer payments. We are entitled to that oil money. I am not going to do any of the work to extract it. In fact, I am going to actively make it as difficult as possible to legally extract and transport interprovincially, because we do not want a pipeline, and thus I will actively discourage Quebec from extracting our own natural resources, since we would lose equalization payments. But regardless, we expect our share of the Alberta's natural resources profits, and the sooner Albertans get that through their thick skulls, the sooner we can get back to building a prosperous Quebec, and maybe while we're at it, if we have time, a prosperous Canada.
Your thoughts, Althia?
I agree.
Thanks, Althia. I agree too. We are one country. We aren't 10 provinces with jurisdictional separation between provincial, federal, and judicial, each equal in power. No, we are one country with one leader. And when that one province doesn't pull its weight, what do? We give them more money. And when they plan to never pull their weight, well, we just keep shoveling more money down their gullets. Keep enabling them forever. Just like Trudeau's safe injection site policy. That's the Canadian way. Help our neighbors, even if those neighbors never help us, refuse to help us, actively make it harder for us to help them, and even at the cost of ourselves. Suicidal empathy. That's the made in Canada way.
Look, it's over for the Conservatives. They were winning in the polls for 2 years, but they have to face facts. It's over. I say so. 2 years of campaigning after 9 years of a tired incumbent government? Meaningless. Voters are stupid. They have the mental capacity of frogs, and are migrating as frogs do to the Liberals because they changed one MP at the top, and because they are legislative and strategic geniuses. Liberals are not, as some people have said, the luckiest politicians in history, receiving the perfect black swan event of Trump to create the perfect villain they can use to foment a dictatorial paranoia in old people and women. No, Mark Carney, who barely speaks French, is just that good at politics. I said so on my podcast. Pierre is doing bad. Rallies mean nothing. Campaigning for 2 years before the election means nothing. 9 years of Liberal failures means nothing. Polls run by downtown Toronto Laurentian socialites polling bored old ladies. That's what matters. Pierre needs to act like a Liberal if he wants to win votes. Instead, he's gone completely conservative in his beliefs. Guffaw! It doesn't matter that I was wrong on every single thing Pierre did that I didn't like that somehow made him even more popular with the electorate. I happen to be right this time. He has lost the voters. The voters are flocking to the Liberals in the way that frogs often flock to hear Pierre's ideas from Carney. Conservatives are voting Liberal. I'm hearing conservative voices tell me this. Believe me, I am. I really am hearing voices, in addition to the voices I hear just in general.
Cut taxes.
We should have already known he was going to win the election after that leadership race. I mean, to go from nobody knowing who he was to in 2 weeks winning 86% of the vote is almost unbelievable. Whereas legacy MPs like Chrystia Freeland or popular candidates like Karina Gould only getting $5,000 each just speaks to Carney's unbelievable campaigning ability to get 150,000 out of 400,000 votes. And of course, Conservatives are right there to drum up some conspiracy theory that Carney was the installed candidate in a rigged election, but that's stupid. The 250,000 Liberal disqualifications were probably self-disqualifications because they saw how powerful he was, shit their pants, and rescinded their vote. I would have. He's just that powerful. Once-in-a-generation leader. And especially amongst women. I mean, why would women vote for a strong yet empathetic candidate like Karina Gould, who's a mom and a feminist, and who sparred against Pierre every single time Trudeau took a vacation in the Bahamas or just wanted to hide under his bed? When they could vote for the mystery box candidate, ooh. I mean, he could be anything. He could even be a strong candidate. You know, much the Liberals have been wanting one of those. We'll take the box. Or, I mean, we won't take the box. Either of theirs. We'll take the straight white old man.
Last word to you, Althia.
Well, we at the CBC think we speak for all Canadians when we say we can't risk voting in the Conservatives, because what if the Conservatives are as bad as the worst case scenario I can come up with in my imagination? Like, just because the Liberals ran 9 straight years of deficits, including a record-shattering $320 billion in 2020, brought our national debt into the $1.2 trillion mark, drove Canada into an inflationary recession, and didn't use any of those deficits for anything useful like housing infrastructure, innovation, or healthcare, but instead gave it to insider scam projects like the We Charity, Brookfield Consultants, ArriveCan, and Green Energy Slush Fund projects that built nothing but made Liberal MPs who were investors on the boards of those projects rich, created a housing accelerator fund that cost $3 billion but didn't build a single home somehow, locked Canadians in their homes for 3 years for a common cold, and when people protested, froze their bank accounts, called them racist, white supremacist misogynists, and enacted an Emergencies Act upon them despite zero violence, multiple instances of foreign interference by the Chinese government to help the Liberals win elections, interfering in corporate prosecutions like the SNC Lavalin, broke the immigration system, multiple ethics violations and zero consequences for doing so, crushed Canada's oil and gas sector by cancelling multiple large-scale pipeline projects that would have created billions of dollars worth of jobs and taxes, and told multiple countries like Japan and Germany, who would have invested those tens of billion dollars in our resources, to fuck off and go buy it from America because oil is evil. Now the leader of the Liberal Party is a billionaire investment banker capitalist with conflicts of interest in China who profits off of climate emergency green technology that doesn't work, but is only bought because the government is overregulated, overtaxed, and blocked the alternatives like natural gas, nuclear in Canada, while also investing in pipelines and oil in other countries, and who's profited off of strangleholding the housing market through Brookfield's corporate capture of the housing market, driven into desperation by high immigration. Carney also advised the government to enrich his portfolio, and now wants to help Brookfield buy even more homes through government subsidies by ripping even more taxes off of ordinary citizens who can't afford to buy a house of their own because of everything I just said, but who can always afford to pay more taxes. Now, is any of that a reason not to vote Liberal?
No!